people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per Fembox News' Instagram account, it appears that former champion Daniela Bermudez has already booked herself another fight on April 22nd. That's going to be a busy day. That's the same day that Alen Babic will challenge for the vacant WBC Bridgerweight title in Poland opposite the ring Rosansky. That's the same day that Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis are supposed to be locking horns. And that's the same day that Daniela Bermudez is supposed to be returning to action for what is the Argentinian featherweight title. That's right. Much like her last fight, her next fight is set to take place in the featherweight division. Featherweight, that's 126 pounds. That's where Amanda Serrano currently reigns as that division's undisputed champion, and that's where she stopped Daniela Bermudez, whose reach exceeded her grasp in attempting to become a three-weight champion 2 years ago. 2 years later, after having given birth to her first child in what is only her second fight back and what will be her second fight of this year, Daniela, she's still at featherweight, at least for the time being. Sporting a professional record of 30 wins with 4 losses, 3 draws, 10 knockouts, having only ever been knocked out once, just once, by Amanda Serrano. And there's no shame in that. Amanda's one of the biggest punchers in this entire weight class, one of the biggest punchers in the entire sport. She's the only one that's shown the firepower to stop Daniela Bermudez. Not every fighter has the firepower that Amanda has. Daniela Rivero does it. Daniela Rivero, who sports a professional record of 9 wins with 4 losses, no draws, and 1 knockout, just 1 knockout, having only ever been knocked out once. Approximately 4 or 5 years ago in 2018, opposite the ring Chile's own Daniela Asenjo. That was down there at super flyweight. The fight she's about to have is approximately 4 divisions north of super flyweight, up there at featherweight. There's a good chance that Daniela's going to stop her. Good chance. Very good chance, as she's coming right off a loss to Vanessa Taborda down there at bantamweight, a unanimous decision loss, and she's been stopped at the lower weights before. It's conceivable that Daniela Bermudez will stop her again for what is the Argentinian featherweight title. Daniela Bermudez is staying local, at least for the time being. I feel that in 1 or 2 more fights, she may make the decision to move down to super bantamweight from featherweight. She stands a better chance of winning a title down there at 122 than she does at 126. She's not beating Amanda in a rematch, and if I'm being honest, I don't think she wants one. It's not saying that there aren't other opportunities for Daniela at 126 pounds, you know, aside from a Serrano fight, which I don't think she'd win. I don't think she wants. No. There are a number of unbeaten up-and-comers currently at 126 pounds. Sky Nicholson, Sophia Leash, Sarah Liegman, Raven Chapman, Karis Ardingstall. She can stick around long enough to see her fighting those fighters, those unbeaten up-and-comers. She might. But I do get the sense that Daniela is making her way south to super bantamweight. Her last fight, last contest, was just north of featherweight. This contest is at featherweight against the bantamweight. Daniela Bermudez's team, they're going about things the right way. They're keeping her busy, getting her back in the swing of things, and mitigating the risks while doing so. It's good for Daniela Bermudez, but not so good for Daniela Rivero. There are just as, if not more, opportunities for Daniela Bermudez at 122 pounds than there are at 126. At 126, there's just one champion, the one that beat Daniela Bermudez already, whereas at 122, there are 4 separate champions, 4 separate titleists. Some more beatable than others, and I do think it's Daniela Bermudez's goal to get down there. There are lots of fights to make for her at 122 pounds, and she's only 33 years old. Some of those champions are more beatable than some others. All the same, Daniela Bermudez, as experienced and seasoned as she is, she really isn't the oldest fighter. She still has many good years left to give to the sport, and I do think it's her intention to make her way towards a world title. just not at 126.
She don't want no rematch with Amanda.
I don't blame her. I don't think it would go any differently. Not for Daniela Bermudez, who may have been stopped by the likes of an Amanda Serrano, but everybody ain't Amanda Serrano, you understand.
Daniela Bermudez is a pressure fighter.
A durable one, a strong one of the best anywhere at or around these weights. And while Amanda Serrano might have had enough firepower to stop her in her tracks, everybody ain't Amanda Serrano.
It's a proliferation, a concentration of unbeaten up-and-comers anywhere in between 122 pounds and 126. Daniela would be a handful for them.
Very dangerous fight. It's good that Daniela Bermudez is back in action, a fighter with some experience that can...
A former champion.
A former multi-weight champion that can be a challenge to both a challenger and a champion alike.
One of the three fighting Bermudez sisters. There's Daniela, there's Evelyn, and Roxana.
Bermudez is the name. Fighting is the game, the family trade.
Some of the finest female fighters Argentina has ever produced.
Glad to see Daniela's back in action. Conservatively, I think Daniela Bermudez by way of knockout or technical knockout is the logical way to go.
Look for this on April 22nd, the same day as Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis.
Speaking of Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, you may have heard this past weekend some huge news that the fight will be exclusively broadcast in the UK and Ireland as part of your already existing DAZN subscription. That's right. No additional charge. No pay-per-view.
Got enough of those running around.
It's a bit of a power play, and in many ways, it's only right because under normal circumstances, Ryan Garcia is a DAZN fighter after all. That's the platform that he fights on, whereas Gervonta Davis, he fights on Showtime.
Those two platforms had to come together to make this fight a reality.
Showtime's local, you understand. They're not global. They only really cater to an American market. The foreign rights to this fight. Well, it's only right that DAZN be the official broadcaster of the match elsewhere in the world, in the United Kingdom and Ireland and some other markets.
It's only right that it's not a pay-per-view because this fight, high-profile fight that it might be, well, it don't mean to the Brits what it might mean to the Americans.
Time zones are a factor. Where this fight is going to be going down during primetime hours for a boxing match in America, it'll be the wee hours of the morning, Sunday morning, over there in the United Kingdom.
It's a less than ideal time to bill this fight as a pay-per-view, at least to the Brits. To the Americans, well, that's another story.
Comes to the Americans and the American pay-per-view market, veteran boxing scribe Steve Kim said, the pay-per-view industry is depressed outside of the rare influencer event or true super fight. Simply too easy to steal, and there is a dilution of quality. And it's too bad because the pay-per-view platform helps to make fights like Tank versus Garcia a reality.
It does, that added arm of revenue.
You got two guys that want a lot of money to fight in a fight, and the only real way you can get that money is to bill it as a box office fight.
And if there's an upside?
I'm told the guaranteed purses, the sum total of guaranteed purses to both Ryan and Gervonta, the size of the pot, it's approximately $30 million. At a price point of $84.99, which is really $85 if you round up, you'd have to sell approximately 375,000 pay-per-view buys in order to generate $30 million. To cover those guarantees, you would have to sell in excess of that.
To cover all the operational costs, you would have to sell more than 375,000 pay-per-view buys.
You'd have to sell 375,000 just to generate $30 million at the box office. You'd have to sell in excess of that to cover it, to clear it. The silver lining for these boys is that I think they can.
I don't think it comes close to selling 2 million pay-per-view buys like Oscar De La Hoya said. I think it was Oscar De La Hoya that said that. And it is questionable if it'll even sell 1 million.
But can it sell enough to cover a $30 million pot?
I think it can.
That's in the United States. In the United Kingdom, DAZN benefits from this not being a pay-per-view because it will stir up an uptick in subscribers for the month of April at least.
If you build this as a pay-per-view, people wouldn't buy this in the wee hours of the morning.
Not in the UK, but if you make this part of a regular DAZN subscription, well, those boxing fans over there in the UK might feel more inclined to subscribe for at least that month to be able to see this fight.
It's inexpensive.
That, in effect, will coax an influx of subscribers in the month of April for the DAZN platform in the United Kingdom and in Ireland. Breakfast and boxing
on Sunday morning.
My previous video, we talked about the importance of accessibility to the sport.
Which is still a poor man's sport.
Making fights more accessible to the consumer is the way to go.
If you made this a pay-per-view in the UK, you'd essentially be asking the consumers to get through 2 separate paywalls just to watch it.
A subscription price, and on top of that subscription price, what the pay-per-view costs, which would likely deter more customers than it would attract. But if you make the fight part of the subscription package, just a regular old fight, no additional charge, that will in effect cause an uptick in subscriptions for that month. So it's a smart play.
Don't gouge the boxing fans. Don't keep asking them to go in their wallets.
And if they do have to go into their wallets, don't ask for an arm and a leg, because you're going to shrink the size of your core audience, and you don't want that. We see enough of that in America. Comes to the fight itself, Gervonta Davis shakes his head at Ryan Garcia, saying he only has a left hook. He is not a complete fighter. While that might be true to some degree, Ryan Garcia is not far removed from a prospect.
You can't look at this guy's body of work and say that he's a complete fighter based on that.
Maybe he's not a complete fighter. If that's true, what's with the catch weight? What's with the rehydration clause? Davis placed his clenched fist,
his clenched left hand directly near Garcia's chin, and also declared, "I'm gonna walk you to the deep waters and I'm gonna drown you. They're gonna have to pick you up. I promise you that."
And he might. I think that's how most people have it. I think that's how the odds makers have it. Gervonta Davis is the favorite going into this fight. This guy keeps talking about how he's going to hit me with a hook, but he doesn't have anything else but a hook. What else have you got? He's not a complete fighter, said Davis. When you're a complete fighter, you can do everything. You can't just depend on one punch. What happens when that punch doesn't work? You have to rely on something else.
Well, there's some truth in that, though. The left hook would be the way to go for Ryan in this fight. Ryan, who's some inches taller than Gervonta Davis.
Gervonta's going to have to get mid-range to inside before he can do anything, and in attempting to do so, Ryan can set him up for a short left hook to take him out.
It's a signature punch for Ryan Garcia.
I feel as though I'm already that top guy in the sport. This fight is just about me getting over the hump, said Davis. I've put a lot of guys to sleep, and Ryan is next. Didn't Ryan get caught and knocked down by Luke Campbell? Do I hit way harder than Luke Campbell? Yes or no? He's putting on a front for the people. That's what I see. A guy who's an act. That's what it is.
The act is calling yourself a top guy.
You're not the main man at lightweight, a super lightweight. You're not the main man in terms of marquee value. You don't sell pay-per-view buys, as many pay-per-view buys as a Canelo Alvarez. You don't do at the box office what he does at the box office.
So if you're not the main man in terms of sport, and you're not the main man in terms of marquee value, in what way are you the top guy?
That's the act. Gervonta Davis continued, this is going to be an explosive fight. If you don't watch boxing, this is the fight to watch for sure. If you can get there, make sure you're there. If you can't be there, buy the pay-per-view, because this is going to be a good one for me.
It better be. You guys went through hell and high water to bring this guy down.
I wouldn't have blamed Ryan Garcia from walking away from this fight due to the circumstances and deal points, that he has to boil down to 136 pounds, that he has to also be subject to a rehydration clause.
And that there's a one-way rematch clause that favors Gervonta, but it doesn't favor Ryan.
Ryan don't get a rematch clause if he loses. Gervonta does. These deal points are far too lopsided.
Gervonta Davis's handlers negotiate like a bunch of fucking cowards.
It's just for that reason that he better win this fight. He better win big, because if he loses, he ain't got no excuses.
This guy conceded to everything you wanted to get you in the ring.
So you better beat him. And finally, an interesting bit of intel by way of the men's heavyweight division. Deontay Wilder has now leapfrogged Martin Bakole and moved up to number 1 in the new WBA heavyweight rankings, despite neither of them fighting in the past month. As it stands, Daniel Dubois remains WBA mandatory challenger for Alexander Usyk, but it appears that Deontay Wilder is next in line. And according to Big John Fury,
a story published by way of World Boxing News, Deontay Wilder, clandestinely at least, was offered the Usyk fight.
The ex-boxer turned pundit made an astonishing claim after Tyson's clash with Alexander Usyk fell apart over the moving of goalposts by his son. Usyk eventually pulled out of the discussions, which John says is due to a massive offer from the Middle East.
That's according to him. That's not verified.
It has been bizarre, but I had a sneaky feeling this was going to happen because of the Saudi situation, Fury said. According to the Metro, they, the Saudi investors, are good friends with Usyk. I believe they have signed up with Deontay Wilder.
They're not necessarily at liberty to do that. Daniel Dubois is the mandatory challenger, and he says that he's fit to fight.
It has since been reported that Usyk's fee dropped from $60 million in Saudi to only $20 million due to the venue switch. Usyk would have been happy with that outcome. Fury adding to that by changing the terms was the straw that broke the camel's back, and likely why John Fury is still performing the spin job.
Trying to divert the blame.
The WBA has since ordered Usyk to defend his belts against his mandatory challenger Daniel Dubois. John believes the fight is not sure to happen, as Dubois may be willing to take money to allow the Wilder mega bout. I know Daniel Dubois is the #1 contender, but I won't be surprised if there is a bit of step-aside money coming his way.
Him and Frank Warren's, said Fury.
The issue here is that making a fight with Deontay Wilder is contingent upon both Frank Warren and Daniel Dubois playing ball. And in a scenario like this, the Usyk people and the Saudis would have no guarantees that Daniel and Frank would.
To top it all off, Wilder ain't got no fight on schedule, but you know who does? Martin Bakole.
He's going to be in action later on this month on the undercard of Bobic versus Rosansky. If he wins, won't he leapfrog past Wilder?
Good question.
They had a deal. They reneged on it. It is that simple. I can see why now, because they've had a better offer from the Saudis. All will be revealed at a later date. You will not find I'm not far wrong. He'll, Usyk, be making a hell of a lot of money. The bottom line for me is Usyk never wanted to fight Tyson. He had a better offer from Deontay Wilder and his team with the Saudis over there.
It's the bottom line according to John, but to a lot of people, the bottom line is we never would have got here if your son and his team wouldn't have moved the fight from Saudi over to the United Kingdom.
And when you did move the fight from Saudi over to the UK, your son wasn't even in training for an Alexander Usyk fight. We know that because of his head trainer, his head coach, Sugar Hill Stewart, who let it be known he wasn't preparing Fury for an Usyk fight.
We've talked about that.
The only reason that he was in the UK a little over a week ago is because he has been training his other fighter, his other champion, Lawrence Okolie. He was due to fly back to America the following Tuesday.
After Lawrence's fight with David Light.
Why would he be due to fly back to America the following Tuesday if he was supposed to be training your son, assuming your son was even training for an Usyk fight?
Doesn't look like he was.
I mean, maybe there is something to what John Fury is alleging, that behind the scenes, moving parts are being moved to make a Usyk versus Wilder fight. Maybe that's true, or maybe it's just John Fury spinning a yarn to get his son out of the hot seat.
They're holding his feet to the fire. He's public enemy #1.
The vast majority of fight fans are pointing the finger at Tyson Fury for this fight's collapse because Usyk...
He's not the shyster. He's not the trickster. He ain't got no history of that. You do.
And what do you think? That because your daddy speaks to Talk Sport or whoever it was he told this tall tale to, we're just supposed to believe it? Because he ain't got no reason to lie, right? He ain't got no reason to shift the blame over to somebody else when you fuck up another fight.
The boxing community at large holds your feet to the fire for it.
It is compelling that Deontay Wilder has leapfrogged Martin Bakole in the WBA's ranked standings without having a fight scheduled.
But after Martin Bakole's next fight, if he wins, won't he then leapfrog Wilder?
Only time can tell this story. Only time will tell if there was anything to what John Fury was saying.
Here and now, I have no reason to trust him.
Could just be trying to get his son out of his comeuppance.
Could be.